project indication, please, sir.
That's great. Father, we thank you for our opportunity to be here tonight. Father, we thank you for this great county. Thank you for the blessings that you give us, Father. We ask today that you would forgive us for we fail you, Father. Just help us have a great night and make good decisions for Sumner County. It's better, Father, this journey into 2027. Lead, guide, and direct us in Jesus' name. Amen.
I have, without objection, several changes to the agenda. So for the first one, it would be item number 10 under my report, and that is planning for capital requests. So there's 2 additional requests here this is for the planning department. It's $130,000 for the Shackle Island and Grace Creek project, and then $150,000 for permitting software. So that would, both of those would be under item 10, 7, 8, 10, report of the Budget Committee Chairman. Item number 11 is Circuit Court. This is a $25,000 carryover into the coming fiscal year for data processing, so that would be under the immediate subsequent one. There's also going to be a change to the Hendersonville Library. They have their appeal has been revised down from 1 full-time employee to one full-time and 1 part-time to just 1 full-time employee. We'll also have one change, excuse me here, to the Finance Director's report, and this would be item number 3 under her report. This is an HUD grant. You should have that as a supplemental to your packets, and this is for this is a pass-through grant for automated systems for planning. We'll discuss all of those subsequent to the joint adjournment. So without objection, I'd like to add those, and we entertain a approval of the agenda. Yes.
I would like to make,
Before we approve the agenda, I would like to set a stop time of 9:30 tonight.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
I think the ayes have that. Is there a call for division? Okay, we have a noted a stop time of 9:30. Any further discussion, anything else anybody want to add to the agenda? Okay,
Motion to approve the agenda is amended.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. We'll now move on to the recognition of the public. Ms. Jill Cornelius.
Oh, should we never do?
You can speak here. You can speak here. I mean, we normally speak here. So go ahead. Yeah, that's right.
should have asked before. Hi, Jill Cornelius, 180 Commerce Circle. I forgot to email y'all, so I'm here. Thank you for your time this evening. Just very quickly, I'd like to have comments, just a couple more curiosities. First, last year, during this time, the County Commission was very generous in assigning about $800,000 to special needs equipment. And I know that with the most recent school budget that was passed, there is a minimum of $250,000. I just think it would be a really great win for our county if the County Commission could consider any generosity for either matching or just continuing to assign any additional funds towards special needs equipment for next fiscal period. The question that I have is a little bit broader, but I'm curious about some of the mechanics. When you listen to the school budget workshop that occurred following the special meeting as well, there were a couple comments about how there could potentially be some known capital improvement needs. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think the number that I heard was around 15 to 18 million. When I also heard that the County Commission is considering also reducing some of its debt relief. And I'm, again, just kind of curious about the mechanics of, are we paying down low-cost debt early and potentially replacing later on if we're not meeting some of the known capital needs for our schools. Yeah, those were the 2 questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brad Williams.
All right, I'll make this quick. Most of y'all already know what I'm going to say, but I'm here for the volunteer fire departments as usual. I know tonight we're looking at approving the budget currently sets at $60,000 per station with a $40,000 match. And how we do appreciate any money we would receive to fund volunteer fire departments. I would ask that you get rid of the match, make it $100,000 per station like normal, or like it was last year. I apologize. There's been some confusion on the $60,000 match, or excuse me, getting it wrong, the $40,000 match, whether that's per station, whether that's per department. It should be per station, if anything, just so you have the ability to raise $100,000 per station. But I just want to pose this. If you remember, there are a few stations that have, or departments that have 3 stations. So just say Highland, for example, to get their full budgeted amount, they would have to raise an additional $120,000 to get their match that they would be allotted normally. I think that's quite a bit to ask for grants and donations for one department to gather. Same if you have 2 stations, like White House Community and Southeast. That's a lot for a match. We know we can be in the budget. Generally, if you're going to budget a match amount, that match is already in the budget anyways, just in case you get it. That way, come March or April next year, if the department gets a grant, makes the match, you're not having to scrape up that money already. It should be in the budget in case of just being held to the side. If it's budgeted, why shouldn't you just give it to the volunteer fire departments? So far, I've asked around, and no one can give me a good reason of why there would be a match. I've heard one reason, and I'm not going to say it again to save the commissioner a little bit of heartache. I get a little heartburn when I say it, but it's going to make the volunteer fire department work even harder. And we're already putting the man hours in. We're saving you on the labor. We're saving you on the repairs, doing them ourselves. We're saving you on the duty, the job. We're doing all the work already. So all we've asked for is a little bit of funding to help keep us afloat. We always hear the double taxation number. I promise you, you're not being double taxed whether you live in the city or the county. We've already talked about how most of your cities are paying $200 per person per year for the fire department, where in the volunteer service in the county you're paying $5. So at the max you're 5% extra tax. You know, it's a very small amount when you look at the grand scheme of things. We also have heard that there is money coming into the county that only is allotted for the county through TVA funds and other funds. The Hendersonville gets their pot of money here, and the county gets their pot of money for just the county area. So it's literally just a budgeting. Where does the numbers come from? It's just all about how you want to think of it. But we know there's enough money to pay for the volunteer fire departments. The volunteer fire department ad hoc is making the recommendation for the $100,000 in whichever form, and the fire coordinator, which should be coming up. And of course, we would all want those things. Thank you.
Mr. Williams, did you state your address, please, sir?
1916 Highway 31.
Is that in Sumner County?
It is.
It is?
That address is, yes.
And that's where you live, sir?
That's the volunteer fire department I represent.
Where do you live, sir?
I live in Robertson County, about
Okay.
50 foot that way.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I don't see anybody else who's lined up to speak, I'll go ahead and make a couple comments just on the kind of how we're going to run this today. So the first part of this will be to work through jointly, and we'll do that in these chambers. I'm going to largely hand that over to the education chair, and we'll hear the education portion of this. And then there's a considerable amount of second hearings that we'll be doing. We will not, we've typically not done these in here. I think it's easier to do these in the actual, in the smaller chambers. So what we'll do is once we're done with the education portion, we will adjourn that, and so the education committee can leave, and all the folks who are here specifically for education items can leave, and that portion will be adjourned. We'll then move to the smaller chambers, and we will conduct the budget portion of this. Okay, those are my only comments. I would go ahead with Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, sir. I do not have a report. I just want to thank our director of schools and the school board for sending us a good budget. And I want to turn it over to Dr. Langford just now to make his presentation. At the end of that, Education Committee will answer questions, get answers to questions from Dr. Langford. And then we'll take a motion to approve the budget, send it to the budget committee before we adjourn. So Dr. Langford, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. I've got the presentation connected in here. There it is. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, I'll go through this. If you want to watch this in its entirety, it's available on the website. I'll spare you a 30 or 40-minute presentation to go pretty quickly through this, but you're more than welcome. Or if you have trouble finding it, just send me an email and I'll shoot you the link. But I wanted to, we've really bought into these core values. We had a leadership retreat last week. It's pretty amazing. We had about 380 people that represent our schools and central office all together, working towards what's coming next. Really proud of the group, just like I tell people all the time in Sumner County, between the school board, county commission, and our elected officials and our departments here, Sumner County is really blessed with the leadership that we have. And then our reason for existing and what we do, we exist to develop better people for a better world, and we prepare all students for their first and future careers. I don't think that's anything original to the current school board. I think it's been this way in Sumner County for a long, long time, and thankful to serve in that line as a Sumner County educator. On the left, I do think it's important, even as we talk numbers, to keep in mind why we do what we do and why we make the commitments we do. On the left, we had Station Camp. We had a Special Olympics back at Station Camp this year. The track was open. It was amazing for our kids to get to see. And actually, we have so much Special Olympics participation, they're going to have to split into 2 days next year, which is really exciting. And then we hosted at the Innovation Center, we hosted Draft Day. It was a combination of us, Meta, and the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce. We had over 500 students attend. We had 6 that got job offers that day. We had 70% of the 500 moved on to the next stage, either an interview, a visit, whatever else might happen, internship. But over 70% got some kind of follow-up contact with an employer. And that was pretty amazing to see. All right, so our budget goals for this coming year, behavior and student support. That's the number one piece of feedback that I get when I'm traveling around talking to groups is, it's an interesting phenomenon. Dr. David Hallman, that's over behavior, classroom management, a host of other things for us, will point out that our overall discipline, like our suspensions are down. We're trending in the right direction and everything, but we have more kids that are coming in with more profound needs. There's a big increase in the number of kids that are autistic. And a lot of times in elementary school, they're learning communication, and it takes a little while for them to master that communication. The other is we have a growing number of kids that are coming to us with significant trauma, and that trauma plays out in classrooms. So trying to address that proactively, this is not a Sumner County phenomenon, this is a state and national phenomenon, but how do we try to innovate and come up with ways that better meet the needs of our students, other than just suspending them or trying to move them into an alternative placement. CT and innovation, I think over the next couple of years, you'll continue to see a rapid shift. Tennessee is on the cutting edge in terms of preparing kids for their first and future career, and that's going to pick up pace. There's a lot of change coming to jobs, and we want to remain on the cutting edge of that. Continued support for our teachers and staff. About 86% of our budget goes towards our staff. Continued investment in technology and continued investment in small class sizes and school level support. I'm going to run really quickly through this, but I just want to show the investments that we've made over the last couple of years in compensation have made a huge difference. Since January 1st, 2024, on January 21st, 2024, we had a certified staff turnover rate of about 9.4%. Currently, it's at 4.6. Our classified staff was 27.3, and that's now at 11.2. So just to give you an idea of what's taken place since 2019 in Tennessee in terms of teacher salary, in 2019, as a starting teacher, you would have made $36,100. This year, you would have been at $50,500. If you were a starting teacher in 2019 at that $36,100, you would now be making $54,731. I think it's important to see where the starting scale is, but also if you stay with us, how that's moved. And then you can see we've moved that up for all teachers. We don't limit, for time immemorial, you stopped getting step increases at 20 years, and then it went to 25 years. We just continue that on now, so as long if you keep working, you're going to get a raise, a step increase each year. Our classified, 24-25, we added $4 and a step. Last year we did a 2-step raise, and so you can see that if you were with us in 2023, you would have started the year at 14.25 if you were in the lower ranges on our pay scale, and currently you'd be at 19.23. And then you can see, I'll go quickly through this, you can see some of the changes over the last couple of years. You can see open positions and fill rate in 22-23. An average position was open 80 days and took 45 days to fill. Currently, it's at 27.45 days for classified and 21.16 days for certified. We'll look at this real quickly. In January 2024, these were open positions. We had some positions that had been open for between 300 and 400 days. These were positions that just weren't being filled, and so we had some things where, like Dr. Becker at Gallatin High School was working the cash register in the cafeteria every day. We had assistant principal at Knox Dawes was working the cash register every day. We had Bob Cotter at Harrisonville High School was functioning as principal and head custodian a lot of days. So we have largely filled that through our compensation work. Currently, I didn't change it at the top, and I put the wrong date on there in the middle part, but it didn't update. Okay. We have fewer openings today that are listed here. We currently have, I think, 15 elementary school openings. We have 3 middle school, 3 high school, and about 14 special education, and I think 47 classified openings currently. That's hugely different from, say, 3 years ago. The state passed paid parental leave for all certified employees a couple years ago. We in Sumner County went ahead and extended it to all of our staff, not just our certified, but also our classified operational staff. And so you can see this allows all parents to take 6 weeks of paid paternity leave or paid parental leave, and that's the impact of that. All right, capital. Our athletic facilities are just about done. Gallatin High School track. It's the bottom layer is down about 95%. If it stops giving us 2 and 3 inch rain weeks, we'll get the rest of it done. The top layer of asphalt has to be there. It has to cure for 30 days, and then the top track surface will go on. Same thing at Merrill High. The lights should be going on in the next week or so. And so hopefully by the time mid-July rolls around, if we don't get, like last year, a month and a half of rain, we'll be done with those projects. Okay, so you can see by year, over the last couple of years, this is our capital spending. We had 2 big years, 24 and 25. We dropped down to $5.5 million this year, and we'll be in that same ballpark for next year as well. Technology. So when COVID hit, we found that we were largely a hardwired district. We had very little mobility. We didn't have the infrastructure to run wireless devices. Currently, we are 1-to-1 iPads, grades 6 through 12. We are 1 device per 4 students in grades 3 through 5 and 5 devices per classroom in K-2. The state passed a law this year about needing a policy to limit access for elementary kids to devices. We feel like we've already kind of done that. We don't want, especially in K-2, we don't want kids spending a tremendous amount of time on computers, devices. We want that to be very structured. One of the reasons that we chose iPads over laptops is that we want them to use these for creation tools, not just testing devices or entertainment devices or anything else it can be used for. But anyway, it's, you can see the kid there. That's the first time he had a device of his own. So it does make a big impact in the lives of our kids. If you were in school system previously, everything was run at the school level. After COVID, we began to discern that it was impossible for a school to generate the kind of money to replace those devices. So currently, all the teacher devices and all the student devices are bought centrally, and we distribute those to the schools. We're able, through Apple, y'all have approved the leases. We're rotating through the teacher devices, so in about 3 years we get a rotation. We're able to sell those devices back for about 25–30% of the value, so we get some money on the back end to help towards the next purchase. Almost everyone now leases technology devices. Very rarely do buy them outright. All right, just for innovation, I wanted to run real quickly. Tennessee is currently #1 for K-12 education in the South. It's been a rapid increase. Tennessee, shockingly staying open during COVID, had a big impact on kids' academic performance, and we celebrate that. I think we've also done a lot of other good things, our investment in foundational literacy and other moves that we've made. But that's not good enough. You know, we don't want us to be #1 in the Southeast. We want to continue to climb. I'll run through this really quickly because I know you have a lot on your agenda tonight. But I mentioned earlier how much it's going to change in the next few years. High school can no longer function as a finish line. It's just a starting point. We have to get kids certifications, post-secondary degrees that prepare them for what's coming next. Right? Like currently a family of 4 in Sumner County needs to make around $95,000 to live in Sumner County. So we need to make sure that we're preparing kids for jobs that will allow them to stay here in the county. A troubling statistic, this came from Tennessee SCORE, only 2 out of 10 Tennessee students currently completes a post-secondary degree on time. One of the things I'll highlight in just a minute, one thing in the AI revolution that's going to be really important is that durable skills, professional skills, soft skills, goes by a lot of different names, become increasingly more important. So communication, leadership, collaboration, handshaking, being able to talk in front of a group become essential in the next generation of jobs. And that's one of the areas that we've begun to really dig in. One of the things that we're working on through the Innovation Center, but for our schools also, is to figure out how we can tie all of this together. We've invested significantly. If you walk into any of our high schools, right, like does anybody remember, anybody here take Ag Shop like I did? And pretty much, I don't know what y'all did. We pretty much just welded stuff together, got in trouble, busted it apart, waited till the teacher wasn't looking, welded it back together again, got in trouble, busted it apart. The best of us built trailers and learned a real skill. If you walk into our CTE classrooms across the county, they're industry standard. And we are preparing kids for what's next at a great rate. One of the things that we need to work on, though, is what happens if a kid enters. We have about 2,000 high school students every year that are involved in our health science competitions and clubs. A lot of those activities are built around nursing or becoming a doctor. And so as kids get into that, if they decide, you have some kids that get into it and they say, well, I kind of like healthcare, but I don't really like sick people. So then they change tracks, not realizing that there are 100 other jobs, 1,000 other jobs in healthcare that require different skills. So finding a way to get kids connected at the employer level, at the industry level, to see what they like. And so trying to reimagine what learning looks like. So this is just a brief snapshot. Apex is the model that we're trying to build, and I'm hopeful that we can share this with other districts around the state and country, because it really is going to be important. And I would say for the first time in my career, industry partners want this as much as we do. They're very open to allowing students to come in. I spoke at a conference about a month ago with the superintendent of high schools in New York City. They run 900,000 students in New York City. They're running 200,000 paid internships for kids. So how do we get kids outside the walls of the schools and in something so they can experience what's going on in the world and apply what they're learning? Also, how do we prepare kids for trades, apprenticeships, TCAT, community colleges, and universities? I already mentioned draft day, so I'll run through that pretty quickly. I won't make you watch the video, but it's really good. It's on the website. You can see this. I think one of the coolest things this year is we've started in January at the Innovation Center running our first aviation cohort. So over 2 semesters, they'll take 4 dual enrollment classes through MTSU. It basically represents a chunk of the first year aviation classes if you go to pursue a master's or a major in aviation at MTSU. What's been really cool about it is to have kids from 8 high schools other than Liberty Creek, since they have aviation already offered there. But it's been really amazing to see kids come from around the county and get engaged in the work of aviation. And you can see this young man reflected. There's so many positive aspects of the program. The bus driver stays well informed of our schedule, is very dependable. I never have to worry about my transportation. Simulators make the class enjoyable. He's already working towards a private license and will be taking his check ride this summer. And the teacher who shared his experiences from his days of flying. We actually had a Southwest pilot who at another point in life was a Top Gun instructor, so the kids really connected to him well. I think the hardest part for them is he very rarely told stories. Most of the time he taught aviation, and they would try to draw him into telling stories. But it's 41 minutes from Westmoreland High School front door to the Innovation Center, and we were able to make that work every day for every kid. So it's exciting to see that your zip code or your school zone doesn't limit your opportunity. You can see this, here are some student quotes for criminal justice and leadership. And I'll, also, Lexi Hughes would probably like me to tell you that her video about aviation, she's going to the University of Oklahoma to pursue a major in aviation. So it's on the report that I gave at the school board. I'll be happy to send you this presentation. One of the things, the leadership kids, we had 12 girls from 6 of our high schools that worked this year on making volunteer hours meaningful, and they did that through partnering with United Way of Greater Middle Tennessee and Hands On Nashville. It started off as a project just for students. It's now expanded. There will soon be Hands On Sumner, and it will be for all citizens of Sumner County to sign up for volunteer hours. Students, of course, but it lets students track their hours. It makes it easier for them to submit them to colleges, community colleges, Beta Club, everything else that they need hours for. But it also provides a way for our charities, nonprofits, all kinds of different community activities to sign up in a way where it exposes them to all of Sumner County to be able to get volunteers. And that's all student initiated. One of the things that I think students struggle with and parents struggle with is they are absolutely bombarded with information. And sometimes it's hard to make a decision because when you can do just about anything, you've got 2 years of post-secondary options out there. So that opens trades, it opens the military, it opens community college, TCATs. In a couple of years, we'll have the brand new TCAT in Portland open, and that will greatly expand the offerings that we'll have. So one of the things that I think we're seeing, is why I love the idea of partnering specifically with industry, is building out pathways for specific careers for kids. This isn't necessarily a job pathway long term, but this is Grace Place Ministries. They're getting ready to open their new facility. It's 43 units for mothers with children to live in. And so we're working on how can kids tie in, learn from Dee about how to set up a nonprofit that's been very successful, but also help tell the story about that ministry and the lives that it touches in Sumner County. Currently, I think it's over 750 students, Sumner County students, have been through the ministries at Grace Place. Here's one for RJ Young. This one's a little bit more industry specific. I don't have it in here. We have one for HCA. Currently there's a high turnover rate in lower level hospital jobs at Sumner Regional and at HCA. We're talking about building out specific pathways so a kid can get that credential and start at the hospital, because both High Point and HCA have great opportunities for kids if they're working there as they grow up and become adults, to find other ways. Like for instance, if you go get a degree in radiology tech or get a certification in radiology tech as a radiology tech, you can go to HCA, work for a year or two. They have a program where you can become a CT scan or MRI tech, and if you complete that certification, you usually make around $70,000, $80,000, and there's tons of jobs in that area. So trying to find ways to name specific ways for kids, high school to HCA, high school to High Point, whatever the industry is. We had several kids hired by Rogers Group, by several construction companies at the draft day. We're going to try to continue to build out these pathways where we tie the certification to employment, internships, things like that for kids to get that experience. So how do we do that? Let me lay out the budget landscape and go through the meat of the budget, which is why we're here today. This is our revenue change from last year to this year. Thank you to the County Commission. I try to always thank y'all. You have made significant investment in our school system, and we are very appreciative of that, and we want to be good stewards of that money. So you can see up 4%, a little bit over 4% from last year, 5.6 million. State funding is up 2.42%. And then other revenues, which are much smaller, is up 17%. Our total revenue overall is up 3%, about 11.6 million. And, you know, we've had some questions about, I'll come to that in a minute. This is what our reserves look like. This is probably the most alarming part of the presentation, is our reserves. I've shared on the school side that this year is a year for us to take a breath. We've done massive investment in terms of capital, in terms of compensation, and this is a year for us to take a breath and move a little slower, and because we need to really rebuild this unbudgeted fund balance. Now, it'll come in higher once we close our books, but you know, it's not going to be, I hope it's like way higher. That would make me happy, but it's not going to be super high, but it will, because you know, when we do these projections, we still have about 2.5 months of the school year left, and you know, a lot goes on with rising fuel prices, with you know, bad storm leading to a new roof, different things like that. There's some dramatic things that can happen, but we do think that number will come in a little bit higher than 1.8 million, but we won't know that until we officially close our books in August. So just to give you a little different picture of this, our funding trend analysis. So if you look at the comptroller's reports, you'll see that number that gets thrown around a lot, the $140 million reserve. That's everything from the amount of money that's at each school to part of our TCRS money. There's a whole lot of money in there that we can't touch. It's designated for very specific purposes. So this is a picture, snapshot of 2023. We had about 63 million in undesignated fund balance that we could have allocated and budgeted. In 2024, that number dropped to 26, then to 19, and this year to 1.8 million. So obviously some of the budget decisions we made this year was to try to turn that curve so that we're not having to ask for additional revenue. Just to give you an idea of some of our costs, and I'll have this broken down a couple different ways. These are some of the key factors driving cost increases. A certified step raise. By state law, teachers are entitled, if they complete a year of teaching, they're entitled to a step raise on the pay scale. We also try to give our classified employees a step increase every year also. So right out of the gate, we're at about 3.7 million just to do those step increases. I'll come back to fiscal capacity. I'm going to already try to work with the legislature on this to get a little bit of relief on this. Our pension rate, we are basically told by actuaries how much we need to increase that. That's based on all the number of retirees and money going in on the different pension accounts and things like that. So this year, that amount increased by $1 million. Our insurance rates for workers' comp and general liability went up $562,000. Our medical and dental insurance, our portion went up $4 million. And then fiscal capacity is a residual now. Our main funding formula from the state comes from TISA, which is student-based funding, moves with the student. There's a residual component of BEP, the old component, which said we need to equalize across the state so more affluent counties pay more of a share than less affluent counties. We get this number, there's two different calculations by, I can't think of the initials, but it's two state nonpartisan organizations that calculate this. They turn that into CTAS, they average it, we get that number. We got it this year on April 28th. So on April 28th, after we were just about done with all of our budgeting, we found out that we've been cut 1.85 million, and that's just fiscal capacity. Hopefully, this will be the last year that goes up like that, but I'll show you just a snapshot of that. In 2024, it was 1.2 million, then it went to 1.44 million, now it's at 1.85 million. So our hope is that it would drop, but you know, it's not going to go away. It's going to be something. It would be really nice if we could catch that number on April 28th this year and it not go into effect until next year. so that we could build that into our forecasting and preparation for the next year. That's what we are talking to our legislators about, if there's any way to kind of, it's hard when you catch that number real time at the end of April. Okay, and then again, this is what we saw as the expenditure changes in terms of certified and classified step raises. New staffing and support, student support and behavioral intervention. This is the area where this is a new investment. We are seeking currently, when we have students that don't respond to any of our interventions, they go through regular traditional classroom, they go to a special education behavior setting, and we have some kids, just a handful each year, that move beyond us being able to meet their needs in that behavioral classroom. The problem that we have then is our only option is to try to find a place outside Sumner County. Generally, these programs cost about $70,000 to $80,000 per student, plus transportation. We've had one student we've tried to get in this year since October. It's tragic because we would love more than anything to be able to meet that student's needs here, but we to this point we've not been able to. But we can't get them into a program where they can receive the higher care that they need to overcome their behavioral challenges. So what we're trying to do this year is create a program where we can do that, because what happens is when we have a kid that remains in a traditional school setting that we can't meet their needs, they're still in a behavior classroom along with other behavior students. It ties up the teacher and the teacher assistants, and it's very challenging for them. It's why we've had such a churn rate among our behavior staff. There's a lot of training that goes into preparing a behavioral teacher and behavioral teaching staff that we lose a lot because of the challenges of being here. So our goal is to kind of combine these programs into one place so that we can put the appropriate number of adults to help, because our goal is always going to be to intervene in such a way that we can get that child back into a regular ed classroom as much as possible. So that's a big investment. We also have some kids each year that come here into kindergarten, and usually by fall break or Christmas, they're fine, but they have some profound challenges in terms of transitioning to school. And so one of the things that we're doing is in 4 different spots in the county, across the county, is having someone that initially can work with those children, because like if we know a child can stay in class for 25 minutes before having a meltdown, then let's get them out in 20 minutes, not to punish them, but to check on them, to ask them how they're feeling, to see what they need, and then to work on building the resilience and stamina to stay in for the whole period. So we want to pilot this year. We have a lot of learning to do in this area. So we want to do this in 4 locations across the county: Gallatin, Hendersonville, 2 other areas. Some of it is having the space within the school and the ability to support it. Once we get those kindergarten transition kids we want in those schools, like years ago we had in-school isolation in elementary. We are 100% not talking about going back to that. That's just pulling a kid out of class when that learning is vital. What we do want is kind of a similar type program where we have some staffing that can pull a kid out just for a couple minutes and talk to them, figure out what their need is, encourage them, provide them the support that they need, and get them back into the classroom. Our goal is to always keep kids in their regular Tier 1 instruction as much as humanly possible. So we want to invest in that and have it run in such a way that we can support it so we can see a significant impact in the lives of our kids. STARS counselor, this is not our staff, but this is the shifting of a grant. But STARS counselors are in each of our high schools and middle schools. And then what they do is they're not therapist counselors, but they are people in the school that they help kids set goals. They get them connected to the right mental health care. They work with their parents and families. But it's another forward-facing adult that helps our kids transition into school and success. CTE teachers, career coaches and innovation. We got the Innovative School Models grant a couple years ago. It was $1 million for each high school, $500,000 for each middle school. Career coaches, so we have a career coach in each of our high schools, and that career coach works with kids. They do thousands of one-to-ones with students each year to help try to figure out what career they're interested in. They take them on industry trips to Nissan, to Corvette, to Gap, to HCA Hendersonville, HCA Skyline, High Point here in Gallatin. They're trying to constantly connect kids into their careers. They're the ones that got the 500 kids for a draft day at the Innovation Center. The state built into that grant that a certain percentage of salary for any staffing paid with ISM grant money had to transition back into GP. So that money, along with one position or two positions at the Innovation Center, the career coaches and some additional CTE teachers, that is the last 25% of the career coaches part coming over from the grant into our GP budget. And then this is Renew, Bridge, IBI. Those are the behavioral positions I was talking about earlier. We're continuing to see an uptick in the number of students needing special education, CDC, and behavior services, so we're addressing that need. Thankfully, with the pay moves that we've made, we're filling these positions at a high rate and providing that support. Cosmetology will be at Gallatin High School. Cosmetology started at Gallatin 2 years ago, and it's so popular that we need to add a second one. It's amazing if you're in one of our schools and you see the CTE cosmetology program. A lot of our kids are getting all the hours that they need to get their cosmetology certification, which saves them probably around $10,000 or $15,000 if they go to a proprietary school. All right, and I wanted to share this. We haven't shown this in a long time. I brought it back for this year's presentation. This is the money that we send per student to each school. So each school receives $50 per student from the district. We've always tried to push money out to the schools to meet the needs of our students. This does not count. There's an allocation for band and chorus, but this is money that goes straight to the school for them to be able to spend on the kids at the school each year. All right, are there any questions?
I didn't take a motion to suspend the rules.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Sorry, I got the card ahead of the horse.
If you want to get a cue, just like both. Can
You
you?
go back, microphones, we'll just use our teacher voices.
We're going to put the microphone on.
Okay.
Just if you would get a cue with the buttons, just so I can see. Go ahead.
Thank you. I applaud the emphasis on behavior. I taught behavior classes for 3 years, and 1 year I got a student who came from, you may be aware of this place, the Atascadero State Hospital, which is a California hospital for the criminally insane, basically. And he was one of my students. He needed way more assistance than I could give him. He mostly slept every day, and everybody was happy for that, because if he didn't, he was violent. So I appreciate that. And as I've dealt with behavior students over the years, it's becoming more and more of an issue in the school system, and because it's becoming more and more of an issue in society. So I applaud the emphasis on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Langford,
Yes, sir.
how many students now are at the Innovative Center?
We soft opened because we took occupancy August 1st. We soft opened with about 50, 60 in January. There should be around 500 in the coming year. And then we're looking on doing some programs. Our goal would be to have about 2,500 kids there a year in some capacity. There'll be 500 students we're stacking programming in half-day increments because that allows us we can tie together either 2 dual enrollment classes or a dual enrollment and work-based learning. And then students don't lose a credit, but it gives us time to transport from all over the county and get there. So the classroom instruction time sits kind of in the middle of that 3 hours, and it gives us appropriate transit time. We're also looking at, I know our health teachers are working. We teach every student at different points hands-on CPR. So we're talking about how can we get every 4th grader in the county, so that's about 2,000 students, to come in and learn CPR and have our high school students teach them. So that would be kind of a one-off program over a series of, probably 2 or 3 weeks. We're also trying to bring in, like for instance, we had a healthcare venture capital startup company come in and do a week boot camp with 6 different companies that they were funding. So we had a group of about 20 students a day come in. We're trying to figure out how to build programming around that so that they could stay at their school, but then come in for this boot camp, but then work with our entrepreneur teachers. So it'll be a little bit of hybrid versus, so I would say next year you'll see about 500 full-time students, and then probably somewhere, hopefully around 2,000 students that will be engaged in some different way for some length of time.
So when you say full-time, they're 5 days a week?
For a half day.
For half a day?
Yeah.
And then they're back at their regular school?
Yeah, we did not set it up as a standalone school because we didn't want it to be, like, we wanted to serve all the students in Sumner County, because the real goal is to not limit opportunity based on your zip code or your offering. So for instance, criminal justice is really popular. We have criminal justice in half of our schools. It's the other half that we don't. And then, you know, we're even finding, like Hendersonville High School, for instance, has 20-something AP classes. Most of our schools have in that 10 or 11 mark, but there are some higher level AP classes that a kid at another high school might want to take that they can't. So what's the right mix of offering those type classes? We're probably a year away from doing that, but we're just keeping to expand the portfolio. We've got 2 cohorts of aviation up from 1 for next year. We're adding entrepreneurship and content creation, and then we'll just continue to add those programs as we can build the student interest for them.
And they are bused
Yes,
to
sir.
their school or from their school?
They're allowed to drive if they choose,
Okay.
but we do provide bus transportation round trip.
And what is the ratio of teachers to students in general?
Well, we had 0 Sumner County full-time teachers there this year. We use dual enrollment, so that's used through the grant with the legislature. So that's with Ball State. Like this year, Ball State and MTSU provided the teachers.
Okay.
So it'll be heavy dual enrollment at the start. We will have a full-time entrepreneurship teacher and a full-time content creation teacher in the fall.
Okay.
So 2. Yes, sir.
Mr. Wayne. Thank you, Mr. Schweinberg. First, I'll say this: I do think that the direction of the schools is great. I know my kids are excited every day whenever they go to school. As a parent, I'm very pleased with the things that I see as far as what's being offered, and just the preparedness of the students from firsthand, just from the parents' side. But one thing I want to touch on is the school nutrition budget. I know I floated up some questions on this a little bit, but there was something that I just wanted to raise or talk about, and that's the unpaid school lunch debt. What was that number this year?
$300,000.
Is that a typical year?
It has been because during COVID, the federal government paid for free student lunches for everybody. Since COVID, it's become a real problem getting that debt collected. Let me say this: we're never going to not feed a student, but we are going to have to pursue, for let's say debts over $500 in a school year. We're going to have to start looking at collections or other ways to get that money, because we try hard to get families to fill out the free introduced lunch form. Our principals work on it, our cafeteria, our school nutrition staff work on it. But it's a relatively small number that run up incredibly large debts. And so, and the problem with it is you can't pay for it out of other school nutrition funds because it's acquired by an individual student. And so we're never going to not feed a student. We're going to always make sure a student eats. But we do have to try to, because school nutrition is supposed to stand on its own, and it does affect staffing and other things like that. We are increasing, lunch prices this year. As you know, I think we're going to $4. As you can imagine, used to you could go to McDonald's or Wendy's and get a meal for $5 or $6, and you go now it's $12 because food prices have skyrocketed, and our cafeterias are feeling that effect also.
Yeah. So I know whenever I initially inquired on that and the number came back, and I was like, did somebody add a 0? I was blown away that there was that much, and that's, I guess, the average on a recurring basis kind of baked into the numbers for, as far as, we know we're going to pay somewhere around $10,000.
We try to collect, like, we're trying to get, collections is an extreme. Like, I'm not saying we're going to start putting people out for collection, but what we're not seeing is the methods that we're using now with the phone calls every night. It's just not being successful at getting that money. And so I think that what we will look at doing is some kind of staged intervention for families, kind of like we do with attendance. So if there's a concern, we want to make sure our first and foremost thing is to make sure that a family knows what's legally available to them in terms of free and reduced lunch. The good news is when we increase the lunch price, it does not affect the lunch price for free and reduced lunch. That reduced amount stays the same. So it's not going to impact our kids, our families that need the assistance directly, but we do want to intervene where we can to help provide support for families to make sure that they're getting the support that they need, because if that's a problem in terms of paying for lunch, it's a problem in multiple other areas too. And we have a lot of really generous support mechanisms in Sumner County that we want to tap into. But I do think that there is some, there's some level of just not paying and not thinking that there's any ramifications for that. Because there's some that, so basically, we will put that in. We'll continue to add that. Obviously, we can hold report cards, we can hold diplomas. That's a last resort. Hopefully, we can get at it through, staging interventions and trying to get support. But it has been a real problem post-COVID.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I know you said it, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think you can draw a direct correlation to hunger and learning ability or passive distractions. I applaud that we don't want to turn away a kid and not allow them to eat just because they don't have the funds to do that, because it would be an obstacle to learning. But where my concern is that it's essentially those that are just taking advantage of. And I would like to see something put in place, the mechanism. Sounds like you're on the right track for that. Let's get ahead of it, because that is a big number. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just add that our school nutrition staff does excellent work. They really do squeeze their legal resources out to do a good job for our kids and families.
Mr. Harrison.
Dr. Langford, thank you for another very concise presentation. Couple of questions. One, do you anticipate any additional revenue coming from the state going forward? I mean, I know their budget, like ours, is yours.
I think it's the same thing that we all see. It's going to depend on, for the state, it's going to depend on sales tax remaining strong. I think that we will know more after, we have our gubernatorial candidates in August. I would think that the candidates running for the November election will begin to put forward plans with what they plan to do in education. I think that'll be a major push. So, yeah.
And you also mentioned in your presentation about the Innovation Center. I think you mentioned that a student from the northern part of the county, Westmoreland, would take about 41 minutes to get to the Innovation Center.
Mm-hmm.
If a student was attending the magnet school, it would be even more time, correct? Somewhere around there?
I'd have to tell you, probably about the same.
Okay. And my question is there any plans in the foreseeable future to possibly put another magnet school in the northern or possibly eastern part of the county to help with that?
Yeah, I think, I had this conversation at the TCAT ribbon cutting with the former commissioner. And, I think what we see now is, for instance, like we have a TCAT we have a middle college program at Ball State. Those numbers tend to stay right around 72. It's a great program. We have a similar type program at the TCAT in Portland, where students, it's interesting, they typically get their associate's degree before they get their high school diploma, and almost always, like especially if they're in welding, they have a job well before they walk across the stage and graduate. That program has stayed around 15 to 20 a year, and some of that is because it means something for the kids to be a part of their school. So they want to take advantage of those CTE programs like at TCAT, but then they also want to stay at Westmoreland, Portland, White House, Gallatin, Hendersonville High School. So I can see, like, I think meeting student needs is want to become more fluid. I think we could certainly, like, if it's the will of the school board and the commission, we could certainly build a northern magnet school. I feel like we could also look at, we've never run transportation to Merrill Hyde Magnet, but we've also never run transportation outside the regular school day anywhere, and we've proven that we can do it. You know, we could actually even look to see, is there a way to get kids that are historically not applying for, and we do have kids from the northern part of the county that are going to the magnet school, but that could be something that we could also look at in the interim, is how do we do that? I think that you're going to see a whole lot more niche programming where we move kids around school to school, campus to campus to meet needs, because it's, you know, it's more efficient than cost effective than building an entire building. So I think we would have to do a study to see if there's the number of students. And, you know, and I think there's other school districts have done similar type things with academy programs and things like that. But, you know, I'd like to kind of run the innovation center and then start to take advantage of the different pockets of excellence we have around the county and move kids for that, so that, like, I stay at Portland High School, but I might spend 2 days a week at the Innovation Center. Ball State is building a brand new health science building that's going to be pretty magnificent in a couple of years. We'll have the brand new TCAT building, and I think when the new TCAT in Portland opens, we will explode that middle college program, because I think then we'll be able to, we've limited part-time, or we don't have part-time students currently because there's just not the capacity there with the demand that they have for certifications for adults, which is their clientele. But I think we'll have more opportunity to do that. TCAT's also pushing out instructors, like, for instance, the auto instructor at White House High School is a TCAT instructor. So every auto class that's taken at White House High School now is a dual enrollment class. I think you're going to see a whole lot more of those type programs too. So we can certainly study it, but I think it's, yeah, I think one question would be is, can we take advantage of what we have currently and look at a transportation model? Because we have 188 buses currently. We have bus drivers, you know, that are fantastic, that are working 4.5, 5 hours a day. Many of them would like to pick up another 2 or 3 hours. And so we've got the capacity to run a transportation model countywide. And, you know, the Innovation Center has shown that, you know, we can do that, and it's very cost effective. So, but yeah, I think we can absolutely study that and see.
Mr. Becker.
I have a question. I don't know if your slides are numbered or not, but can you go back to it's the one with the undesignated fund balance and there's there it is. Okay. So are this looking at these numbers makes me like very, very nervous.
Yeah, me too.
What are these numbers for 23, 24, 25? Are those actuals or what we're budgeted?
No, that was actually what our fund balance was that year.
Okay.
So 26 is projected, it's low. That'll be the lowest it'll be.
Okay. I'm very curious to know what the projected number was in each of these years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, these are actuals, so we had that. This trend right here, maybe, I think if I'm looking on page 7 here, if it's correct, last year's projected during the budget was 4.35 million. Is that, would you agree with that?
Let's see. Yeah, I've got it right now, I'm just looking at it.
Page, it's the last line.
Yes, the approved budget was 4.3 million.
So 4.3 was budgeted, and we came in with a 19.1 actual. So that's good. But just driving that down to that 1.8, can you send those other numbers to me?
Yeah. You mean what we budgeted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was budgeted, these are actuals. 'Cause
And just so you know, it's not any kind of, it's just that we're budgeting now what we know, or it's a projection based on what we know.
yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to spend every dollar in every line. We're pretty tight. We try to keep that number around, you know, But one of the areas, when we had that 63 million, when we were in those numbers, that was when we weren't filling a large number of positions, like we're filling them. And so a lot of that money came out of that. So that's why it's a little harder to, because we have 6,000 employees and we have people out on interims and different things like that, unfilled positions. That's where we catch a lot of that reserve number.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be like, I don't think it'll jump from 4 million to 19 million again. I hope it does.
Yeah, so if you go back, I think you wanted to show where that, the 50, this one right here.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the 57,458,000 is what's available to be budgeted against. And so it looks like you're driving out $55.6 million out of that to leave the 1.8.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is that is the 1.8 too low?
Yes.
Because, this time next year, all of a sudden, that's potentially, looking at that trend, is going to be a net, and then all of a sudden we need more revenue.
Right.
I just wanted to comment, because I was going to ask a simple question, I apologize, I'm a bit out of turn, but maybe Matt will ask this a different and more direct way. Are you all looking at a deficit spending scenario now or in the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think we have one or probably our next 1 to 2 budgets are going to be really tight like this, and I think it'll loosen back up. We are looking at some things. One of the things that was included in the big beautiful bill is a capacity. It's under like the federal voucher program, but it applies to public schools as well. So we can create a scholarship granting organization that can ask people in Sumner County, just like, they're still in the rulemaking stage, so we're about a year and a half away from this coming into fruition. But basically, it's $1,700 tax credit. Like in Sumner County, it'd be per person that makes under $393,000. So you could designate on your tax return that you wanted that money to go to Sumner County Schools entity, and we would get that money. And then out of that, we could pay, it's really tightly defined on what that can be. It'd be technology, classroom materials, tutoring, things like that. But that would be a huge influx in terms of, like we could shift a couple $1 million a year we're spending on technology or curriculum and things like that into that fund, and that would give some relief locally. That's probably so that's the biggest alternative revenue source to state sales tax and local county property and sales tax, because I think we do need to look at, obviously we're going to look for substantial investment in the Innovation Center to try to drive industry partnerships at state and national level to get investment made here locally, which will also help. But in terms of offsetting, the 85% of our budget that's employees, one of the investments that we've historically made, to your point, Mr. Schoaf, what we will have to look at for next year is we have a value in Sumner County of small classrooms. Our classrooms, especially in middle school and high school, are significantly smaller than they have to be. There is contraction that we can make, but the trade-off is larger classes. So we've not done that. We lose some of the flexibility that we have to do some of the things that we currently do in high school. We are getting better at looking at outcomes-based funding. Typically, we get that in December or January from the state, and that's based on our academic performance and then some different variables for high school. We're trying to push that number as high as we can. Typically, that's coming in at around $2.8 to $3 million. We're going to try to push that as high as we can. So there's some, but again, that's there's not a silver bullet. We're going to try to add everything up, but we will have to look at, what contraction is there once we get that final projection of what our reserves are. But that's why you see, like this year, instead of previous years where we've done larger raises, what you're seeing is a step increase, which is currently on our pay scale. So people will make more money, they will get a raise, but we're not doing anything to lift the overall pay scale like we've done in the last couple of years. Partially because you can see from our retention rates and everything, we're pretty competitive with the market. So we're not in the same bind we were 2 years ago, where we were, churning 28% of our classified staff and having to constantly train, retrain, and have unfilled positions. But I can absolutely
Appreciate it.
Mr. Shep, did that get?
No, I and I still got to turn it over, we had suspended the rules, so, did you have, you're good, okay. I guess I did have one more question, and that is, as a general rule, you kind of started to break down what the additional spending was, and you may not have these figures, but overall, you have almost $11.7 million in additional funding. Is that correct?
Where are you?
I'm on page 6.
Page 6?
Page 6. So aggregate funding between local, state, and other pass-through, 11.688 million. I just, you had one slide that had 3 different items for the additional expenditure of the county, 1.17 million for behavioral health, about a little shy of 0.5 million for stars, and a little shy of $1 million for CTE. You don't have to give an exact breakdown here, but I would just be interested in a rough estimate of that 11 shy of 11.7 million. What percentage of that has gone towards salary increases for existing personnel, new staff? It looks like you might have covered that. If that's the sum of it, it's around 2 million, a little bit more, 2.5 million. What I would call G&A, overhead, maintenance, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And just, the questions are always about, the question that I get, which I think is fair, is, hey, we're not putting a lot of new students into the school system, but we're increasing them, 3.5%, 4% year. What is that increase going to? I know just from off the top of my head that just inflation, if you kept everything the same, would probably eat up a good bit of that. But I do think just for the public to understand very briefly what that breakdown would look like.
Yeah, and I don't have the specific number, but like on this slide, we've got inflation at currently 3.8% and rising. Diesel, you see food costs, and we haven't yet caught the wash of how increasing diesel is going to get passed on into all of our materials and supplies. We increased the number of our maintenance lines, probably around 8 to 10%. We tried to balance that out as much as we could by looking at our cash flows and revenue streams to try to offset as much of that as we could. But I mean, if you look at like just the ones on this slide where I listed totals, increased medical dental insurance, that's $4 million. Increased insurance, $562,000, $1 million for pensions, 1.85 fiscal capacity, $956,000 for a certified step or classified step, $2.7 million for a certified step. That comes in right at about 11. That's about 11.3, I think.
Just a bit shy right there. Okay.
Yeah, and then I think the thing is like I just was interested. I was like, since I did this slide on teacher pay from 2019 to 2026, we've done that at the same time that it takes $126 to make $100 in 2019, which is kind of a crazy statistic when you think about how inflation has hit us over the last 7 years and it's climbing again. I was in California recently and gas was $6 a gallon. And, so that probably puts diesel there about $8 a gallon. And thinking about those total, we think about it in terms of what we see locally here, but when we're moving supplies and products from all over the country, they're catching sometimes a much higher rate in other parts of the country.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Klein.
I had asked my last question. I got distracted by the fact that we have college teachers teaching at the Innovative Center.
Yeah.
So what is the ratio of students to teachers?
It kind of depends on the program. So we had 12 in leadership. I think we had 15, 16 in criminal justice, and then we had, I think, 20 in aviation.
So do those teachers cost us, or are they just out of the goodness of their hearts?
No, each student in Tennessee by the legislature gets 5 free dual enrollment classes. It's not free, but it's paid for out of the lottery fund, so it's paid for out of Tennessee Promise. So one of the things that we're trying to do, a metric that we're trying to track, is what percentage of our kids are taking those 5 post-secondary classes, because it can go for TCAT or or like Vol State or university. So like, for instance, we work with Vol State, Welch, several different TCAT Hartsville, TCAT Portland, TCAT Nashville sometimes. And we're really just trying to craft, and you'll start to see, for instance, we've had some meetings with Vanderbilt, we've had some meetings with Lipscomb. Lipscomb's doing some teaching as a profession work in Sumner County. And these are not just at the Innovation Center, these are offered across the county. Typically, the university has to have around 12 to 15 students for the class to make, because that's their point where it's worthwhile for them to do it. The Innovation Center is attractive to them because, for instance, if you think like a higher level math or science or something like that, where there might be 4 or 5 kids at each school and they can't make, by putting it in a central location, we expand that opportunity. But we try to manage a lot of costs for really high level classes through using dual enrollment, because we're getting college level professors and the state is footing the bill for that instructor instead of it coming out of our GP dollars.
Is our goal generally 25 kids per teacher?
It depends. By law, high school classes have to be under 35. CTE classes, if we want to keep our federal funding and state funding, they have to be around 23, I think. But then middle school is around 30. You know, elementary, it kind of steps up from 20 in kindergarten up to, I think, 25 in the higher level grades.
So if, just doing simple math, I think we're at about $14,000 per kid per year right now.
Total, if you take in state, federal, all of that.
Yeah, and that's, I was just taking your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, I had a question and I forgot it. Go ahead.
Just looking at the numbers on there, obviously the one that jumps out the most is the insurance. I know in the past, teachers paid roughly 15% of the premium, and then the county picks up the rest. Is that staying the same for this year, or is that changing?
The employee pays 20 and we,
20?
and we pay
Okay.
80. Mm-hmm.
Is that changed from years past, or is that kind
A
of?
long time ago, I think it
Is
was
that
15.
something that the school board or whoever has looked at, of, hey, we may need to shift this around to make up that deficit that Mr. Becker was speaking about earlier?
Yeah, we monitor that really closely. This is the first year, you know, we get a report each month based looking at how we've saved. One of the things that's driven our low costs, like this is the first year that we've, like we haven't raised employee rates the last 2 years because we were able to manage it. And so, for instance, if you look at that $4 million, it's probably around a 9% increase, 9.5% increase. A lot of districts, especially on the state insurance plan, are catching 10% a year, where this is the first time where we've caught a sizable. Looking at our trends this year, it looks better. So hopefully, you know, it's kind of a one-time jump. There are certain things that we're looking at to try to manage that impact our plan. GLP-1s, you know, we have some employees who have just health conditions that are very expensive, and
Sure.
that's the part of us taking care of our people.
Sure.
But I do think that some of the things like GLP-1s, like we got to get the right balance there, because GLP-1s in proper usage save us big time long term when you look at the cost of long-term effects of type 2 diabetes and obesity and things like that. So we don't want to just outright ban, but it is a growing. We actually use a third-party vendor as part of our managed health plan with Arista, and that we caught a clinic locally that had suddenly, it was a women's clinic, and they had suddenly picked up about a significant number of male patients that were all happened to be taking Ozempic. And, you know, we caught them in a couple $100,000. If we'd waited on Blue Cross Blue Shield, it would have been a couple million before Blue Cross Blue Shield would have caught it. So we're trying to really manage that. Changing the percentage would be a last resort, because it's such a big benefit for our employees. And it also, you know, if you think about just beyond the benefit of it, before we had our one-to-one clinics, we had a significant number of our classified employees that a lot of times didn't take advantage of the insurance because of the cost. But the one-to-one clinics for the school system and the county, we're seeing a tremendous return on it, because we have physical therapy, we have online physical therapy, we have an x-ray machine. So for instance, at Ellis, we have x-rays. I believe it costs us something like $60 for an x-ray at Ellis as opposed to $500 or $600 at the hospital. So one of the benefits of our negotiation with the state on giving them the property for the new TCAT building is we get a brand new one-to-one clinic in the Portland TCAT, and that'll be really beneficial for our employees because anywhere we can put x-ray machines, physical therapy, exercise, we're reaping huge benefits short-term and long-term for the county.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think if you compare that to what we see in other counties, like for instance, a county like Wilson County pays they used to pay 100%. Now an employee pays $150 a month, I think, for them as an individual, but it doesn't pay anything extra for families. So you're paying $1,100, $1,200 for family insurance. When you add that on the cost of child care, it would really drive down our ability to hire and retain young teachers for families.
So seeing nobody else in the queue, I'm going to go ahead and bring us under.
All right, but just remember when I use it. Okay, I'm trying to look at numbers here. So the state is going to contribute $216 million and change. And that's an increase of $5.1 million. I'm on page 1. Our revenue, or the local revenue was $145.5 million last year. And you're needing an additional 5.6 to increase the MOE, I'm assuming. Is this a trend that you think is going to continue, that the state is going to be contributing less every year and we're going to have to contribute more?
I don't know. You know, we got a huge jump when TISA first came in, like around $25–30 million. And then it's kind of tapered off at around 2–3% the last couple of years. I know part of this is that if you take that 5.1 million and you add back in the 1.85 million that we lost on fiscal capacity, we're in a little bit different place. So like we're catching on our state money, there's a drag on it because we're subsidizing smaller, less affluent counties.
Oh, that's what fiscal capacity is?
Yes, sir. Like they calculate it, it's a zero-sum game. So if it goes up 0.2 here, it goes down 0.2 here. Yeah. And so hopefully, even if we don't get relief in terms of the way it is done currently, hopefully at least it'll kind of, it's a crazy calculation. If you look at it, it lags 18 to 24 months. So we're still in these numbers, we're still catching the growth from a couple of years ago. So I'm hoping that, because when the first number went from 1.2 to 1.4, it's like, okay, that makes sense, but 1.4 to 1.8 this year, like home prices and things like that haven't appreciated that much in Sumner County over the last 2 years.
But we're considered one of the more affluent counties in Tennessee.
Yes, we're like the 7th or 8th most affluent county.
Okay, without seeing anybody else in the queue, so I'll go ahead and bring us back under our rules.
Okay, so education committee, we're looking for a positive or negative recommendation. So move. We've got a positive recommendation from Commissioner Green, second from Commissioner Bell. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. So we now turn to the budget side of this. I would entertain motions to author negative, or with positive recommendation. I guess it is an approval. Sorry. We have a motion to approve. We have a second from Mr. Harrison, Mr. Klein.
What are we approving?
We're approving the
budget.
budget for the school budget.
Okay.
The school budget as it is.
Okay.
Any discussion on it? All in favor? Any opposed?